Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today I have another JAX Real Producer here to share her story. She has a vast experience in the cosmetic industry where she worked for over 2 decades. She was a Rookie of the Year for her brokerage in 2019. She is the Hoffman of the Hoffman and Crawford team at Engel and Volkers. Let's welcome Pamela Hoffman to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm very good.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me here today.
I appreciate you coming down. We've never met before, which is actually very common on the show. Like I said before, just feel relaxed, we really want to get your story across and out to your friends and family and new customers that get to meet you. So as I kick off every show, the easiest question: where are you from?
Originally from New York. Actually.
I'm from a New Yorker too.
Born and raised.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised in New York, but lived in Long Island. Also lived in New York City for many years as well.
Oh.
And moved to Florida about 6 years ago.
I did see that you were with Estee Lauder, I think, on your looked on your LinkedIn, and we're actually in New York.
Yes, I was.
Wow. We were just up there 4th of July. Of course, it's so interesting how the difference of living here. We do have a little bit of a yard. The houses are getting closer and closer. But it's a different lifestyle when you live in a city like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We lived in New York City for about 10 years, and I could tell you that, it was great when we did it. And it was before we had kids, and so it was just the lifestyle was awesome. And I worked in New York City, so my commute was super short, but having everything at your fingertips and restaurants and bars and shopping and all of that was super fun. But I couldn't tell you who my neighbors were. It was like the weirdest thing.
Interesting.
You lived in a massive building and you could get in the elevator, and I could not pick out my neighbors until they were literally standing next to me opening their door. But we moved to this place where everyone knows everybody. It's a pretty it's a different lifestyle, and for some, I imagine, some people that may live in New York think, oh, that's kind of weird, but I know everybody, my kids know everybody, everyone knows my kids. And when we first got here, I thought it was really funny how I would take my son he was just learning how to swim. So he was 2.
Right.
And I would take him to the pool and people would say hi, Christian. They knew him before they knew me.
All right.
So it's just, it's very cool living here. And we moved here for the lifestyle. So.
Right. Well, I remember you made me think of, I spent most of the 90s in Northern Virginia. And a lot of times, the only time I was living with my cousin, we were in townhouses, and it was really when it snowed and you had to go out and shovel the driveway. That's when most of the interaction went on with your neighbor. Mm-hmm. And here in Florida, like you said, of course, the kids being involved in the kids things do put you out there. Your child's on the swim team, and of course all the moms and dads are standing around. So, you start to interact. But there's no doubt, and that's something we could definitely talk about. Highlighting real estate is the lifestyle here in Florida, because I think that's the most important thing. People move here for a lifestyle. Yeah. And
that was the main reason why we moved here, because I have family that lived in Nocatee, and they moved here about, I would say, 10 years ago at least. So it was in the plans, but it wasn't what it is today. And so we decided to come here because we saw in Northeast Florida, not only do you have sunshine for most of the year, it's beautiful for the majority of the year, but you're really able to enjoy that. But then being able to have, close access to the beach, you be able to go to the water parks and enjoy that. And it's such a difference in terms of, you can work and work hard and be successful, but you can also enjoy your lifestyle. And that's really why we moved here.
100%. Suffolk County Community College. Mm-hmm. You have that on your LinkedIn.
Yes.
Is that something you graduated from high school and just kind of migrated over there? How did that come in?
Originally, I went away to school. So I went away to SUNY Oswego, upstate New York, almost by Canada.
Say that again.
SUNY Oswego.
Okay.
My accent. And so I went there, and I was a biology major.
Okay.
And I thought that I wanted to be in the medical industry at the time. And biology was great. Chemistry was not so great. And I realized, I was I can't do 8 semesters of this. It was just not for me. And so I went home, and then it was just by chance I ran into a friend who was working in cosmetics at Macy's at the time for a different company, and hey, how are you? And she was doing something she really loved. She's like, hey, you should work here. Throughout high school, I worked in retail, so my entire life has been sales and service, and so it was very easy for me. So I was, okay, well, I'll apply for a job. And it was just because I knew I was going to go to school while I was at home. I was trying to kind of figure out my new path.
Right.
And it was probably just a couple days later, I got a call, and it was, hey, we have this job opening for a Clinique consultant. And they're part of Estee Lauder companies.
Right.
So I went, I did the interview and got hired right away, and was like thrown right into it. And at the time, I also then got registered for school and decided accounting was going to be, because I like numbers. I realized that I like numbers. And so
I was a math person too, and I thought engineering, but I didn't want to take that engineering and that chemistry either. Yeah.
So I can totally relate. So so I decided accounting was going to be my path. And so that's what I thought that I was going to have a career in. And and I loved all the classes and all of that. But I was also working at Clinique, and I was working full time and going to school. And what I realized, though, was that I found a passion for what I was doing, and I fell in love with the cosmetics industry, and I was very successful. And I started as a beauty advisor, as a Clinique consultant, and I ended up it was just kind of like the stars aligned, because I ended up working with people that really invested in me and my development. And they saw my potential,
Right.
And so I grew through that.
So the background to this question, actually 20-some years ago, I was working a part-time job at Dillard's. Dillard's had a travel agency at the time.
Oh, wow.
So I was working part-time there. Thanks to my mom made the connection. She was in travel for a good bit, had her own travel agency. But anyway, so I was in Dillard's, and you walk through the cosmetic counters, almost seem like they're employees of the store, but then they're also, because they're representing the brand, Clinique, Estee Lauder, they're almost on you, because you're obviously getting different training. There's a lot more involved than just that person hanging out in the women's clothing section. And tell us a little bit what's involved. Someone was listening right now, or said, oh yeah, my daughter would love to go work at the mall and in the kind of the thing you do. What's entailed, and actually when you step in and take that job? I mean, because I imagine there's a good bit of training before they start letting you touch people's faces and do all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so when I worked with Clinique, they're a company, they're a brand that really pride themselves in the level of education that they provide to their employees. And so, and in cosmetics, those are co-op positions. So yes, you're an employee of the department store, but you're also an employee of the brand. And the brand gives all of the brand education, from the service experience to how you connect with people, how you uncover needs, whereas the retailer has their own set of education. But to give you an example, in the first year of working there, I had over 100 hours of education that was provided to me by that brand. And it was a lot of in-person training. There was, back then it wasn't online. We won't talk about what year, but yeah, it is a lot of coaching and education. And then they come in and they spend time with you side by side to make sure that when you're interacting with people, you're giving them the right information. You're asking the right questions to connect with them so that you're successful.
Right. How much, like, if you were to balance roughly, those 100 hours were spent in, obviously, training you on the product, what it does, what's behind it, so you could be educated on it, versus the interaction with the client from a sales and personability, the tangible assets that you need to be a successful salesperson. I guess I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but because we talked earlier about the sales training. At 100 hours, how much did they spend on roughly each?
I would say, the product is easy because there's so many reference tools, and they give books and tangible things. Like now they have online tools, and they give them iPads to use in their stores and all that. But at the time, you had all those things at your fingertips. So if you weren't sure about, let's say, a product ingredient or how something worked, you could easily reference that. So I would say like 90% of it was, how do you work with people? How do you work with people,
Right.
understand what their, what their concerns are, what their needs are, and then how do you make sure that you're recommending the right things for them based on what they're telling you, or maybe what they're not telling you, what you're seeing, because you learn a lot about that, as well as kind of, how do you interact with people, and everybody has a different communication style. So how do you understand based on all of these factors and deliver what it is that person is looking for?
And from the male's perspective, just watching, because you're getting up close and personal with these people, and you're standing out there in the middle of the floor at the same time, and so there takes a skill, like you said, reading people, because some people are very bashful in that. Some don't care to sit down in the chair and let you do whatever you're going to do with them. To that takes a skill. There's no doubt, or a mindset, I guess. I don't know how would, because you then went on the training. How did you taking what you learned there, then you went on to train others to do it. What are some of the things that you took, whether you still use from that very first year in those 100 hours to stuff that you maybe, because I imagine as you grew in training, you improved it. Well, in theory.
I did. I did.
Yeah.
Well, so when I moved on into my next role, I was promoted into a management role. And I knew that I wanted to do that. I realized that it was, I wanted something of my own, like my own store. And that's where it all began. But when I became a manager was where I realized that training was where I was meant to be in my career. And at that time,
right.
Because I really enjoyed developing people to be successful, and I also had a passion for sales. So I had a volume that my store was responsible for, that we needed to achieve, and all of these goals, and driving events, and growing our client base, all of that. But then teaching other people how to do it. And in answer to your question, what I took with me, I would say, is I learned by doing. And I also learn by, I'm a very visual person. I don't learn when people read things to me. I have a business partner. She'll be telling me something on the phone, I'm not taking any of that in. Yeah, I know. Okay. So I visually,
right.
I visually see things, and it's like, okay, got it. And then I also have to put it into place. And that's what made me successful, was that I would never ask anybody that worked for me to do something that I was not willing to do. And so that was what made me successful. And as I worked through my career, even up to when I was the vice president of education, if I wanted to try a new concept, I wouldn't send it out to somebody. I would go in with my team, we'd roll up our sleeves and okay, let's try this. Is this realistic? Is this what people want?
Right.
And then that's how I could take something and then, essentially sell it to, 10,000 consultants around the world, is because it was tried and true. And I knew in my heart that it was the right thing to do by people, and that, it was going to be easy.
Well, that's one thing about the industry, is you probably do get an immediate feedback, because you are face to face. I think it can be difficult. I spent 12 years of my mortgage career working from an online with a headset on, and you're not seeing the facial interaction, and it makes it a little easier when you at least you're out there trial and error. You can immediately change your direction just by how someone reacts.
Correct.
Yeah. in very subtle ways. Yeah. If you can think of, I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, but think of a couple real concrete foundational things that you may have actually ended up teaching yourself, because as you're a trainer, you're being trained as the trainer, and then you're, like you said, you're bringing it to your students, but then you're tweaking it, because are they receiving that? Do I need to converse it in a different way, or teach it a different way? What are a couple of just some foundational things that you catch yourself still using today in real estate?
Simple things like asking what someone's goals are. So I started out in, yes, skincare and makeup, and it might be just, what are your skin concerns? But how that applies today is, okay, you're looking to make a move to Northeast Florida. Tell me about why. tell me, like, what are your priorities? What's important to you in that move? Who's coming with you? I like to ask a lot of questions to understand what's the dynamic. Are they coming by themselves? Or are they coming with their family? Why did they make that choice? What's important to them in terms of like, what do they need to have within the home, but also near the home? Because if I can understand those priorities and what kind of the motivation factors are, then I already have a better insight into that individual and what's going to be important to them as we search for a potential.
Do you find everyone has an answer to some of those things, or you have to kind of like drill a little deeper? I just know, obviously, interviewing a lot of people, sometimes if you ask, a why, we see a lot of trainings and so forth. Oh, what's your why? What's your why? Well, I mean, yeah, I want to eat. I want to, provide for my family. I mean, what do you mean? What's the why? Is it not obvious, right? But some of it's not obvious.
Yeah.
And how do you break through that, because, some person, they put up there's a subtle wall because they don't necessarily know you so well yet. And they're not really, they think it's personal information where it's professional information.
I share a lot of my personal experience. So going back to what you said, what are those things that you still apply today? So I moved my family here 6 years ago, and I've been through it. I tell people about my background. When I started, I was in corporate education. I had a global position. I traveled the world. It was a very cool experience, and I'm grateful for that time that I had. But what was important to me at the time was that my kids are really little, and I want to be present for them, and I want to give them the best lifestyle. And I see that, we're living in a place where it's snowing all the time, and, they only spend like 3 months out of the year outside, where they get to play, where we could go somewhere and they could pretty much play all year round outside, and the schools are good, and I'd feel comfortable with them riding their bikes down the street, and everybody knows them because I saw that about it here.
Right.
And so I tell clients about that. So if I feel like, I feel like there's an opportunity to share that, I do, because I want people to understand what drove me here. Why did I come here? So that they can relate to me as well.
Right.
And I find that a lot of the clients that I work with appreciate that. They appreciate my openness to share who I am and why I made those choices and what was important to me, because what's important to me and my lifestyle may not be important to them. But if I can understand more about what their priority is, then that's what's going to, and I always also make that connection. I share that with them. Like the more you share with me, the more I can understand what's your driving force, so that I'm going to make sure we get you to where you want to be. Ideal. In your dream home, or if it's selling your home as well.
Right.
That like we're getting you to what you want to be in the best way, the fastest way possible, at the best price possible.
How often do you find, which I'm going to say it's probably, the answer is probably common, but so many have misconceptions of, whether it's a CDD community or, HOAs, obviously, you say HOA to someone up north, they kind of know what that is, even though they've not experienced it yet. But you probably do get some pushback, or, this person that wants a new construction home, but really what they're telling you is they want this existing home, or vice versa, right? How are you, if you can relate, I'm sure you have a couple stories where you've had that situation. Someone's just wants that new construction home and then goes, these new construction homes aren't built as good. I can get a lot more square footage. How do you work through that, and then obviously not necessarily convince them, but put them in the presence where they come to the realization this is really what they want, because they're telling you one thing but saying something, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And sometimes it happens even with couples where one wants one thing and then the other one wants something else, and so then they're like, okay, well, they come to an agreement, but it's really not where they're going to be happy. I totally understand that. I think that the main thing is showing them. So if I'm working with people that are from outside the area, helping to not only give them and if they've never lived here, so helping to give them insights on Northeast Florida, different areas, whether it's, looking at Ponte Vedra Beach in Nocatee, or looking at Fernandina Beach or Palm Coast or Green Cove Springs, looking at all these different areas and kind of listening to what they're telling me of what they're looking for. And then I'll say, look, I'm going to start sending you information on communities. So not just houses, but just like links. And I might send them links if the community has it, like a website, great. If it's like a particular area, it might come from Google, but helping them to understand what's in that area so that they can start exploring. And then I'll also, if they say, okay, yeah, that's sort of interesting, then I might send them just groupings of homes in those areas and say, this is just so you could see what you could get at a certain price point. When you come here, we're going to take a look. And because they might already narrow in on a specific, let's say, zip code. And it's like, based on what you're telling me, I think you may also like X, Y, or Z place. Let's just go and check it out.
Yeah.
And what I find is that very often, because we do that, we either rule out specific areas and they're like, you know what, I'm glad that we saw that because that makes me know that I want this type of home or I want to be in this area. So being able to help them to see their options and rule things out, I think makes a difference.
Well, I think you're describing, that's one of the unique things about, our Northeast Florida region. There's so many, there's so many similarities. We have some, but because whether if you're, you're out at Nocatee or you're further out into St. Johns County, towards the river, Rivertown, and each community in between is so, could be the size of the homes, the size of the neighborhoods, I think, one thing I've noticed in St. John's Golf where I'm at, how it's evolved over the years. When I first moved there in 2009 and on my street, it ends in a cul-de-sac, there was a handful of kids. We didn't even have kids yet. But now I don't know if there's two homes, I know of two, so there's probably maybe 3 homes now that are empty nesters. The rest all have, when you go to the bus stop now, it's like every house the kids are coming out of. And how each community is different, and really breaking it down, like you said, it's difficult on the real estate agent, but also it's like this treasure because you could literally go like a half a mile down the street and have a totally different setting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm going to adjust this camera just a little bit because you sit up a little bit. I don't want to cut. I don't want they cut reels. Sure. All right. Yeah. I think that will. All right. That should work there. All right. I think let me do it a little more. Go ahead.
You also asked me before and I just thought of this as we were talking. You asked me, what are other things that I've brought to how I do business today, or or to real estate education. So my career was corporate education in the beauty industry, and teaching and I worked at Estee Lauder companies, but that included Clinique, that included Origins, but I worked for a brand that focused on education and wanted their people to be the best of the best. And, and the belief was like, the more knowledgeable you are, the more expert you're going to be at something, the more that comes out to the client and you're going to deliver a great level of service, but yes, you're going to be successful. And so that was ingrained in me throughout my career. So when I decided to go into real estate, I came here and I realized part of it was personal experience, which was important to me, but also being the best at what I do. And how am I going to be the best at what I do? It's getting a lot of education. So I pride myself, even to this day, I've been in this now for 5 years, going on 6 years. But I am a broker associate. I'm a licensed broker associate. I have my GRI, which is my Graduate Realtor Institute designation, seller representation specialist. I am certified marketing, luxury home marketing specialist. I also now just completed in the past year, and it was a lot of hours of education. So I talk about this because I've done so much real estate education as well for myself. But most recently, I just finished all of my education for certified residential specialist, which is great because that is considered like the highest level of recognition you can get as a real estate agent, because it's not only education, but it's tied to a financial result. Like you've hit a certain benchmark. And why do I do it? Not because I care about the credentials, like after my
No one cares
title.
about the credentials.
No one cares about it. It's the knowledge that I have, and then how I'm able to share that with my clients, because that's really important to me. Like I want to know that I'm doing the best possible, I'm giving the best possible service and sharing the highest level of expertise with my clients.
Right.
And if I don't know something, that's what I also tell my clients. Like, if I don't know something, guess what? I'm going to find out for you. I'm going to tell you I don't know. Like, I'm not one of those fake it till you make it. Like, that's just not my way. I'd rather say, you know what? I don't know. I'm going to find out for you.
Right.
And then going to different resources and leveraging them. But that's why education is important to me. So that's my advice to new agents out there is that, like, don't be afraid to, like, you know, when you're getting started, like, oh, what do I do? Like, you know what? Do a ton of education. Get a ton of it, because the more you know in this business, it sets you apart from everybody else.
Well, I also take that you are ambitious because you jumped ahead of my
Sorry.
podcast, but that's okay. It brings up, you know, it's a topic I like to bring up and get everyone's angle on, and everyone does have a different angle on it. And mostly the bottom line is the because of really top producing agents is who I have on, so they. There's 99.9% agreement on all of that. But and the other part is, I think it's important, even the more going to the class, you get more than just the class, you know, especially if you're doing it in person. I know we've gone since COVID, you know, a lot of people went to the virtual, and as I'm on the faculty at Florida Realtor, you know, to teach one of the finance classes, and the discussion of how to handle people, you know, using the online. Supposedly AI is going to come out to tell you like who's engaged with you by how they're looking in the cameras and stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, so instruction's good.
Okay.
But the in-person, you know, Patty Ketchum, one of the most respected instructors, is on the real estate board. You know,
I was in one of her classes for GRI.
Yes, she's awesome. And she said on the show, one of her regrets was for years she never cast a shadow. That was her words, cast a shadow at the Board of Realtors locally, where she's at in Tallahassee. And she regrets that because she didn't make a lot of relationships. I think she's caught up with the relationships part because she's all over the state, and she's just a great person. And not only are you in that class to learn and get something from that instructor, but you're talking to other agents, you're interacting. Tell me a little bit about how important it is to make relationships with other agents. And I'm sure you've had some people on the other end of deals who are like, man, I can't wait. I hope I do another deal with them. And
absolutely.
I'm sure you had some others like, I hope I never see that name again.
Yeah. We won't spend time.
Yes.
On that. No, absolutely. I think it's so important to create those relationships because you continue learning, and then there are resources for you when you need it as insights. And you know, I think that, like, the GRI class is a perfect example. You know, I met several other realtors that were in that course. One of which I met with her, bonded, and we just had a similar learning style. So anytime we had, like, in the classes we had activities, we just ended up together, and it was great learning with one another. And at the time we were at the same brokerage but different offices, so I had never known her. And then when I was looking to make a move to the new brokerage that I'm currently at, I had heard she recently went over like 6 months before. And so, or like I don't know if I saw it on social or something like that, but you know what? It was easy for me to make the call and say, hey, tell me about your experience there, because I already had that relationship, you know, and I've also had great relationships with agents that were, like you said, on the other side of a transaction. I had one where, you know, it was a gorgeous home over in World Golf, and he was the listing agent, and he was there, and he was at a different brokerage at the time. And just had a great experience from beginning to end. He needed to be really present for it because it was a high-end listing, and so. But he was there to help facilitate insights as needed, and that was interesting because that was probably my first $1 million sale, and this is now going back a few years. But seeing that from that perspective, we had a great relationship. It was a great experience, but I learned a lot from him in that transaction. And then we stayed in touch, and it was like, okay, well, you know, hopefully we get another deal together. Today, he's now at the same brokerage that I'm at. And, like, and it's just funny because you make these relationships with people, and you can learn so much from one another, but it's so much easier if you have a strong relationship through the process, especially if you're helping clients on whether you're on the listing side or the buying side. to be able to say, okay, you know what, I trust this person because I've already done business with them and it's been a great experience, and you can feel comfortable asking questions and getting information.
100%. I'm going to have you pull the mic over just a little bit, and then
I might have moved.
Just bring it up a little bit, because that way you won't hit it with your hand.
I talk a lot with my hands.
No, having done this so many times, I can hear I know what I'm going to hear in the car when I play it back later, when it goes out on the podcast world. And because I know from myself, because I know what I did, I turned my head. That was one thing I learned about podcasting, is you have the mic so you're always talking in the same direction, so your sound's always consistent, versus if you turn your head, you can so good. But no, that because I think that's so vital. I don't think agents do enough. There's some agents that are very social, and there's some agents, though, they just have the attitude of, why do I want to go there? They already have a house and they're a real estate agent. I'm not going to get any business there. But I think we found in 21 and going into 22, where we were having 20, 30 offers sometimes in houses. Jocelyn talked about 69 offers on one house. I mean, and to have those relationships, and when you're the listing agent and you're going through all these offers, to see some names that you're familiar with, does that, I mean,
absolutely,
because you have to present that to the sellers of what deal you think would recommend.
And so when you're presenting in a multiple offer situation, they're asking for your insights. So how do all these offers look? Well, so here's what I can tell you. Obviously, financially, here's how they look side by side, right? And that you like that it has, let's say, the lender pre-approval, or that it has the proof of funds. It all looks, everything is accurate. The way that it is written. So so I think that's also important. And yeah, there's a bit of, yes, I know this agent. I've worked with them before, and smooth throughout the entire process. Or I'm not familiar with this person, so I can't really, I can't tell you anything about that. But or yeah, I once had an experience with this agent or brokerage, and
it was a battle.
And it was, it was difficult from beginning to end. And sometimes, and you know that. So that's why it's important to build relationships, because you never know when you're going to need those resources. And sometimes it gets you the foot in the door, like ahead of somebody else, because you have that great relationship.
Have that reputation. Because there's definitely the agents who, I think Kim Knapp comes to mind. I remember we're having discussions with her talking about negotiations, right? I mean, there's always going to be something. I mean, you have pretty much going to every deal, assuming there's going to be some, after that inspection, there's going to be, some sort of negotiation, one form or another, and how some just make it very miserable, versus coming to a collaboration that, hey, we've got a buyer who wants to buy the home, and we got a seller who wants to sell the home. We're already knee deep in this. Let's come together and find that meeting of the minds, and not be so abrasive. Because if you were educating a new agent today that showed up, or had only had a few sales, when it comes to negotiation, tell us a little bit about your mindset when you start a negotiation. Let's say if you're on the buyer side, you just got that inspection report. There's a few things I'm sure you could probably think of a story right now where you had that. How do you approach your buyers on that, and then obviously to prepare what you're going to send back to the seller?
So what I like to do with my buyers in an inspection process is help them understand, even before the appointment, what is the inspector looking for? So they're looking at the roof, they're looking at the structure, they're looking at the HVAC, the electrical, the plumbing. Sure, you know what? They're also going to, depending on if it's like new construction, they might be looking at some cosmetic items for you as well, because they're an extra set of eyes. But let's say it's a resale we're talking about. I help them understand what we're looking for is anything that is safety related. So if it's safety related, that should be at the top of our list, or obviously like HVAC, like that's important as well, right? But if it falls under those items that I told you, so structure, the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC, then those are likely going to be priorities. Like, little nicks and things like that. It's like, those are easy things for you to fix and either do it yourself or have like, let's prioritize the more important things on the home that are going to, let's say, maybe they're going to be the bigger ticket items, but the items that can create more of a problem for you
Pick your
financially.
battles.
Yes. So I try to set that up before we even get the report. And then what I'll do is once the report comes through, and I say like, okay, you're going to get the report, I'm going to get the report, and we're going to review it together. But I usually will review it before I even, talk to them. And I already have a mindset of here's how I would recommend prioritizing. And because I at least share that in the conversation, but ultimately the client is in the driver's seat. And then same thing, if I'm working with a seller, I let them know, here's what they're going to be looking for. And here's what you can anticipate that may come in terms of requests. So, and I, even before I take a listing, I might say, are there any things that are, that you're concerned about that, you've seen? Like, is there anything leaking in the home? Are there any outlets? Like, are there things that that need to be fixed? Why don't we try to get that fixed before you even list your home, so that it's not a concern, or if they like.
Well, I'm a big supporter of pre-listing inspections, just because I think, I don't know if you experienced, but I heard stories, especially during, with inventory low, and the rates were low, and people were scrambling, and multiple offers on house. People were making offers on houses, and it was just because they were kind of settling for that house. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, they found a house that they thought was better. And then now they're wanting out of the contract that they're in. So if you leave them room to get out with not solving some of these issues that would come up on that report, it's giving them the out. It's giving them an easy out. They can say, "Oh, yeah, your AC's too old. I don't want to buy the house." Yeah.
Correct. And so I think, preparing your client, whether you're working with the seller or you're working with the buyer, of like what to expect. And to anticipate, it's a negotiation. So remember, you negotiated on price, you came to an agreement. Don't think that it's smooth sailing to closing, because we have to get through the inspection process, and recognize that it may be a negotiation on the inspection side. And, our goal is to get you to the finish line. So be open. And I think helping a buyer or seller understand that, so that they don't dig their heels in over the small stuff. Is what's going to help them to be successful. So that's really what I take into a negotiation. And then the other piece is, again, how I'm communicating with the other agent. So, I've had some transactions where maybe the other side only communicates by text and email, but they refuse to get on the phone. Like, that's how they like to do business. Okay. But that's not how I do business personally, because I feel like when you're able to talk to one another, you're able to, that's where you're able to connect and understand what's the priority on this. Like, where is the seller? Where is the buyer? What's your take on this? And you can understand, again, what are their goals, and then how do we work together to get there?
Right. That part right there is going back to what we were just talking a few minutes ago, the relationship part. Having the relationship with the other real estate agents, you can say things and know that the agent on the other side is going to filter it and clean it up, because there are agents that will almost basically verbatim or take the email that you sent to the other agent and literally just forward it to their client, instead of filtering it. And then it just causes angst in my
Because there's a lot of emotion on both sides.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It's our job to be the buffer for the emotion and to make it more, I would say, black and white. So it's simple, and that
right.
So that you're helping to kind of de-escalate, and people, because it's personal. It's a home. It's personal property, whether you're buying or selling. And so being able to be that buffer and eliminate.
Well, they had to have that what if conversation, right? Well, what if we were able to do this? Do you think your buyer would be okay with that? Well, I don't, I'm not saying we can do it. I'm saying, what if is that, you have those kind of open conversations, and that's having that relationship that we talked about earlier. I'm going to take a step back, because we dove deep into high level real estate stuff. What was, so you're in corporate America, you decided you wanted to move to Northeast Florida, or was your husband got transferred? Or what was it brought you to Ponte Vedra?
Well, so my brother and his family lived in Nocatee,
Okay.
and they work. He's a lender. So,
Mm-hmm.
and my sister-in-law has also worked in the banking industry for like their entire careers,
Mm-hmm.
and so they moved here with one of the big banks, and that was probably 10, 12 years ago. And we kept visiting Nocatee. And it was like, at first I was like, where'd you guys move? Because there was nothing.
Right.
And they were one of the first neighborhoods. But then once they got their splash park and they had their golf cart life, and we would come to visit. And it was always nice. The weather was always nice when we would come to visit.
Right.
But I loved how my nieces and my nephew, like they would go down the street and it was like, everybody knew them. And they had this like wonderful, like, vacation lifestyle, and the schools were good, and the beach is close by, and so that's what really drew us here. And we were I think it was like around President's Day. It was like a horrible snowstorm in New York, and it was like I was looking out the window like, ugh. Oh, no. And I kind of made a joke to my husband, like, we could just move to Florida.
Zero nonstop, the JAX.
And I said to my husband, like, we could just move to Florida. He's like, yeah, why not? And I did not expect that. It kind of was just like on a whim. And we came down for Easter and just looked at homes. And there was, a brand new neighborhood and like some, model homes for like this one. And it was just like, I mean, you would think that I was just buying a
Car
or a pair of shoes, because it was like such a quick decision. And it was the best decision ever. And so my husband had his own business. He sold it in New York. And I worked in a corporate job. And so we moved here. And so he ended up going to work for a company. So he went corporate, and then wanted to open up my own business. It's like, well, I've got so much experience. I have, I'm financially, well off that I can start my own business. Like, why not? Because I have all this experience in sales and service and beauty. Like, what could I do? And I was probably here for about 3 weeks. And I had really, I mean, we moved here for me to enjoy life with our kids and all of that. Like, it was like totally changing gears. And I was in the process of selling my home in New York, selling my secondary home that I had in South Florida, and building a new home. And I was like managing that whole process. And I realized like the stars aligned, and I realized like I could do this. Because it just clicked for me, because I realized like I understand people. I understand how to uncover needs. I understand what it is like doing this relocation process and building a home and selling another home and all of those factors. And I realized like I can do this and I can be very successful. And so I just remember like being 3 weeks later, like, okay, so I'm going to go with this. And my family had worked in the banking industry, so it wasn't new to me. Right. But then I decided to sign up for real estate school and went in person. So I was not about doing it online. Like I wanted to like see like, am I going to like this? If I'm spending money on this course, like I'm going to get something out of it. And I just loved it and passed right away. So I passed the class, took the state exam less than a month later. And then I started. Like I was here for 5 weeks, and I got my real estate license and started at Watson Realty Corp at the time.
I asked this on every person. Did you go to Watson's class?
I did.
You didn't just and it just led you into the brokerage there in Ponte Vedra. So because I think one thing I've found, real estate, like you've moved brokerages now after a couple 2.5 years roughly at Watson. You moved. And, occasionally, like, as I'm sure in your corporate world, you might have been changing offices or going to New York. You have sometimes a change of scenery gives you a little boost or whatever. I can't stay doing the same. Although the podcast, I have to say, is probably the most consistent thing in my life, but because I love doing it, right? But the brokerage, how important in what you know now, 6 years into this. Looking back, if you had a girlfriend, basically the same thing. Hey, I'm moving down here. Should I, what do you think about real estate? How would you describe to them the importance of the brokerage and how that plays into your success as an agent?
Oh, it's super important. I think you need to make sure that you pick a brokerage that feels like the right fit for you and your learning style, and that it has the resources in order to make you successful. Um,
We'll say help you be successful.
yeah, help you. Yes, not make you, help you. Like it's an assistance, really.
Yeah.
But it was by chance. I didn't even know Watson before I moved to Florida, to be honest with you. But talking to my brother, it was like, hey, so if I want to take this course and I want to do, who do you, who, and I knew he knew so many realtors, obviously doing what he does for a living. But he's like, you should go with Watson. They have a whole school that you can go in person, and so like. Googled it and whatever. And so when I went, I met with the broker that happened to be like in that same building. And she was blown away. She's like, oh, I'm gonna hate this, but I'm gonna recommend you to Nocatee because you're gonna live over there. and so, but what?
Would you go to the one on 210? Don't they hold the classes in 210?
No, they were. I think it was like San Jose. I think it's
okay.
where it's like, or
there's a couple offices
it's like up there, like Atlantic.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the reason why I didn't even meet with any other brokerages, like, so, in retrospect, in my experience, I would say meet with multiple brokerages so you could find the right fit for yourself. But for me at the time, it was a good fit because it felt the most corporate. So it was a safe choice. I liked, and what caught my attention while I was at their School of Real Estate, because they did a little presentation. They're not supposed to like recruit,
right?
Because you're paying for just a course, right?
Right.
But I liked that they talked about the education tools that they have for new people. And I know that there's lots of brokerages too. So like KW has, new education with Coldwell has. So like go with a brokerage that's designed to teach you
where you're at
and the basics, right? So you're doing the right thing because you don't want to get sued, you don't want to lose your license, but you want to be successful. You want to know the core stuff. And then you might find maybe that's a good fit for you or maybe it's not. And then that's where there's all these different kind of brands and brokerages and how they're.
It's not necessarily the big names too.
Yeah,
I mean,
correct.
They're, some of the big names, whoever might be the leader at that time may not actually be moving the needle. One of these smaller boutique brokerages, which are often someone who's probably made it through those tracks and went on their own, might be the feed for you. Because I think one of the, if I asked every real estate agent why they went to a certain brokerage, education, if it's not the first one, is the second one. So we know not every brokerage offers this outstanding, thing. How would a new agent find out what's really behind the scenes?
Talking to other agents, really reaching out and asking. And I've had phone calls from people that are about to get their license, even just as a real estate agent, where people call me and they're like, I found you because I see that you're in St. Johns County and you're successful. I'm looking at my license. Like, what's your advice? Like, I think that's the biggest thing is talking. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. Or if you're interviewing with a broker, just remember that you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. And it needs to feel like a good fit. Like, do I feel like I can learn from this person and they're going to guide me in the right direction? And does this brokerage have the tools available to me for my learning style? And then if you're in that building, see if you can talk to some agents while you're there and just what's the vibe that you get, right? I think that's really important.
Did you, coming from corporate America, and then you probably sat down with this broker that we're talking about, or your original broker. Did you have that initial mindset? Or did you feel, more of an employee standpoint versus this is your business and you need to match up your business with that broker's business to, have a successful business, because they're not going to really fire you. You're going to fire yourself. But I think a lot of people like, oh, I went, this broker really likes me, and they'll use the term hire, and I correct them. No, you're really teaming up. You're really looking for a business consultant.
So the broker that I met with at the time, he was very old school, and I could tell he really wanted me to join. He was like, because he loved my experience and my background, and I knew that I was not looking for somebody to coddle me, because obviously with my experience, like I'm coming in, like I was a VP of global education. Like I'm self-sufficient and I'm going to drive my business, but I just need resources. Like, so I want to know that you're going to be available when I need you, and you're going to teach me the stuff that I don't know in this business. And so I liked that he had that type of experience, like different style to me. And I could either, I could take the advice or I could leave it, but that it was there of like, okay, so here's some things that are tried and true that I've, used with many of my team or I've used myself. And that was important to me. And so that's why I chose that path. And it was a good one at the time. And then once I realized that, I had a great, had an outstanding first year. I had an even better second year. And I realized, okay, so I'm ready for more resources in a different way because I felt like I was also using tools outside of my brokerage, like a lot. Like I was paying for resources, whether it was a website or a CRM tool or, how I was doing my marketing, like those types of things. I felt like, okay, I'm using all of these different things. Like I'd like to go somewhere where it feels like now, based on where I'm at, that it's a better fit. And then that's how I ended up at Engel and Volkers, because I really loved all of the comprehensive approach that was offered there. And the broker there, polar opposite.
Corey's been on.
Corey is, I think that, so I think he's 36 now. So
I want to find someone who says something bad about Corey.
No, he's awesome. He's really great to work with.
I don't even think he's 36. Yeah. I don't think he's that old.
He might be 35.
I have to go back and remember the episode we talked about.
I think I'm aging him right now. Forgive me, but because I feel bad for myself how old I am. But when I met him, I was like, oh my God, he's so young. Yeah. But he is a true salesman. Mm. And when I went in, so that was 3 years ago, I went in to meet with him. It was just funny because he was like, here's all the tools that we have and all that.
Were you actually looking, or did they call you?
They called me. Okay. So like I had just been completing my my broker licensing. So it was kind of like I was at this place where I was like, what's next? Mm-hmm. And also my business partner was also at Watson with me. We met there and she was in the same place. So we were not a team, but we just started together and we gravitated and started learning together and whatnot. She was in the same place getting her broker's license, not by us, but it just kind of happened. Yeah. Like, oh, you're doing that. And so, I had gotten the call from Engel and Volkers, and they said, "Would you like to meet with our broker?" And we can, as real estate agents, we get these calls all the time. But it was like they called me on a day. I was like, you know what? Let's go for it. I'd like to come in for a meeting. Like it was a brand that I was like, okay, I know about them. Mm-hmm. Like there were some that are like, no, thanks. It's not a fit. It's not a fit for my brand and who I am. And,
right.
But I went.
Well, in your brand, I think coming from the corporate, you like the corporate brands. You like, because I know Corey spent a lot of, he's very proud of his offices because they really project that corporate
correct. I like
power and presence.
I mean, you see me, like I live in black. Pretty much black and white. It's like, sometimes I'll add a pop of color in the summer, but when people are like, oh, you're wearing color, but it's just, it's just been ingrained in me. Right. And I like structure. And so that's what's important to me. I want to feel like I'm in an environment that feels very buttoned up, that's very professional. Mm-hmm. I want my clients to see that. And, they view me that way, but I also want the brokerage that I'm associated with to appear that way. And so that's what I liked. And so when I met with Corey and he showed me all the tools that they had and all of that, I was like, wow, this is really impressive. Like all of it was amazing. And he's a true salesman. And I was like, you know what? It totally polar opposite to the last broker that I worked with. I learned so much, but there was something unique within Engel and Volkers. At the time it was Engel and Volkers Jacksonville, but now First Coast, even bigger. But I saw that it was just, there was something there, and that's what made me take the leap and go. And I also encouraged my now business partner to go and meet with him, and she did, and she took the leap with me. She's like, "Yep, let's go."
give me a couple things that Corey said that really resonated with you.
I think
at least at that time, anyway.
I think at the time it was I think that one of the things that I loved, which is true today, he talks about it all the time, is that he wants us to be the best of the best. He wants us to appear the best of the best. He recognizes that he only wants to bring top talent. Mm-hmm. So, that spoke to me because that's how I want people to view me. And I know that there's a lot of talent here in Jacksonville, and to know that I am amongst the best of the best, it's a very, I mean, it makes me proud to associate with those individuals, but to learn with them. But also giving us the resources so that we can do what we're meant to do. Like we don't get tied up doing things that, that someone on a support team, our marketing support team, can help us with, because they're like, whatever we need, we have a big support team in the office. We just call and they'll take care of it for us so that we can do what we're meant to do, which is connecting with clients,
Right.
connecting
Getting
with
the
people.
face-to-face.
Correct. And I
Money
think,
generating activities.
correct.
Yep.
And that's what I appreciated.
The best. You made me think about something here, and I'm working with one of the volunteering because my son's involved, but one of the basketball programs, and kids are entering at, you might have a kid that's been there since the 5th grade, has all the skills and you're trying to keep moving forward, right? Just like you're going through school, next year you learn a little bit more. And then all of a sudden someone enters in at 7th grade and they're no good as that kid was in the 5th grade. And now you're dulling it down because now you're starting to flood the classroom with kids that need to be brought up to the level, and it's hard for you to take those kids who are already at the level to the next level. And when you said that, it resonated with me that I can imagine that some of these larger brokerages that have a lot of new agents in there, the experienced agents at some point, they probably stop going to the sales meetings because, the trainings, because the trainings are dulled down for the new people, which there's generally a lot more of than those who might be 5 or 6 years in, because that just 80% don't renew, right? And when you said that, I said, that clicks. When you go, when Corey calls a meeting, you've got some people in there that, you're teaching, whether him or whoever can teach at a high level or talk about high level thought processes versus being dulled down with, because there's a new person in the room, 10 new people and only 5 people who might be 6 years in, like yourself. I mean, that's got to start raising your level quicker.
It does. Yeah. And it's giving us a platform. So it might not always be Corey teaching. It's him facilitating those conversations and giving us the platform to allow that to happen. And I think that's what is really amazing is that we've got 130 advisors right now in Northeast Florida, and everyone is super successful inside our brokerage, and at any given point experiencing something with listings or with buyers, or with, whether it's a new agreement that we're now having to use, or how we navigate certain situations, how you're navigating the market. So that's really what is amazing, is being able to leverage that so that you can then go back and be more successful in your daily role.
Yeah. Because that's I think one of the challenges of agents is you reach a lid, right? There's only so much you personally can do yourself before you're having to do all this back. You're searching for homes or what's popped up, or, whatever those things are you're doing that a lot of people don't see you doing.
Yeah.
And we could talk about the Noah lawsuit and my opinion on that, but I don't know if you're up on that. But all those things a real estate agent does that we don't actually see or perceive that they do unless we're in the business and know they're doing those things. But somebody's got to do them. And at what point did you feel, or did you reach it at Engel and Volkers, or did you reach it at Watson, where you kind of felt that lid, like I can't personally do any more in the course of the day. I need to start spilling some of this stuff off to someone else. When did you reach that feeling, or felt that you were at that point?
I recognized it when I was at Watson. I think that's what made me leap, was that I had my first year I did $3 million as a new real estate agent, which is, that's.
And this is 2018 at that price point. So that would probably be $5 million today. Correct.
Which is considered that's a great volume. And then my second year, I tripled my volume, and that was me working my business. And and what I realized was that I did that. All of the business that I had was because of what I had done. It wasn't because I was learning it. Like I said, I was also spending money in other places for tools that I felt like, okay, well, I'd rather have it all in one. And so that's what I realized. And I wanted marketing support. I realized that, like, I don't have the time to always be, I know what I want. If I could tell somebody what I want and they can put it together,
Right.
that saves me a lot of time.
Send me the proof. Okay, that looks
correct,
good. Get
correct.
it, fly
and
it.
then, like, oh, here's an edit, and
Yeah.
that's what I realized. I hit that point in my second year as I was, and I was getting my broker's license, that I realized, okay, it's time, because there's only 24 hours in a day. And again, my I work full time, but I also, want to make sure that I'm around for my kids, like,
Yeah.
and in order to be able to do that, I have to work smarter, not harder.
Well, in just touch a little bit on, you're reaching outside, you were finding these other tools that you were utilizing. That takes a lot of time, because it's not like you see a tool go, oh, I don't realize you could do that. Like right now with the AI technology, some of this stuff, if you just wait a couple of days, there's another company pops up with a similar, and like, okay, who's going to give me the best price, and what actually are they going to do for me? That takes time to evaluate all that stuff. And then the next step is, okay, I made the choice, click the button, I want to involve myself with that. Then you got to learn how to use it.
Correct.
And how much time and energy, and it takes you away from the income producing activities, which we haven't tapped into marketing. But if you want to, we'll spin into that. Where is your business coming from? How do you like to market? Are you a cold caller? Are you a door knocker? What do you like to do?
Well, so the majority of my business is my sphere of influence. So it is, I would say, more than 75% of my business is my sphere. And that is through the relationships that I've built. And, yes, I am on social media, and I love to do video. I like to engage with people. But
you need to put more on your YouTube. I've already scattered it out.
I know, that's yeah. So you're helping me with that, absolutely. But it is being able to connect with people in my community. So when I look at my, I joked before, I shared before that it could be Fernandina or Green Cove or whatnot. Yes, I go to those, or Palm Coast. I go to those areas, but majority of my business is in St. Johns County. And the reason is because of the connections that I have. And so staying connected with people, and then referrals from past clients. So I keep those relationships going, and then they remember me. So like this past summer, I had a military family. I helped them 5 years ago. They were probably my second sale. And they had a great experience, but I kept in contact with them. And then when he got the call, they're now moving out of state. They have to move to another area. They called me. They were like, hands down, like, we wouldn't work with anybody but you, right? Well, so I helped them. And then they also referred me another military client that was coming from Japan. And then I helped her and her family move here. And so that is majority of my business is because I've built those kinds of relationships with people, and they recognize me as someone who, like, she's an expert. She knows what she's doing. She's going to give us an outstanding experience. She's looking out for our best interest. And I think that is what makes me successful. Do I advertise in places? Yes, but the majority of my business is my sphere.
Right. You used the word we said relationships a couple of times here. And this is something, because I think everyone has a different definition of that. I was talking with a very well-known broker here in town, and she was talking about one of her agents said that they work very hard, like while you're in process and getting home, that having that relationship, but she didn't really want to be friends with everybody, which kind of confused me. I guess, like, you never have enough friends, right? I think we all have only a few really true friends, and the others are associates, and we're friendly too and hang out every once in a while. When you say relationship, and when if you've ever sat back and just looked at your process or some of your past clients, like this particular one, 5 years gone by, what you gave them great service up front. You did all the things a great agent should do. And in this case, it was only your second sale. So you did, there was something personable about you that you did. But what do you do after the sale? What is your mindset? What is your strategy after the sale to keep the fire burning?
Part of it is continuing to provide value. So helping them to, help every year. So whether it is reminding them about, did you make sure that you filed for homestead exemption? let's take a look at your value of your current home. Like, I know you're not looking to move, but you might be curious about what your home's value is today. Just want to make sure you have this information. So that it's so valuable information on what's happening. Sometimes it might be, hey, this house sold down the street and from you, and it's the same floor plan, because I've done that. Like, look at the value of that house now. And I'm like, woo, glad we got you in it when we got you in it. And so my clients appreciate that.
Or
That's
refer him
value.
over to your brother-in-law? Was your brother-in-law
My brother.
the lender? Tell him they need to refi and take the cash out?
Yeah. And so those are elements of value, but then also staying connected with them through social media, through like in the neighborhood as well. Like, so many of my clients live in close proximity of me. And so it might be like cool stuff like, there's a certain event going on. Hey, and sending them a message. Hey,
Remind them.
going? Are you going to this? I'd love to see you. And they see me. They see me at the pool. They see me, let's say at the restaurant or wherever. And it's nice because it's like they're not just like a past client. They're somebody that I stay connected with. And then I also, remember them, like their birthdays, holidays, and all of that. And I reach out to them because I think it's important to, and with something personal, and not like, I don't like a generic, like, Merry Christmas email.
Would you agree that people are touched just the fact that you thought of them? Mm-hmm. Telling them, hey, they're having an event up at the community center or whatever. We're going to be up there. Love to see you there. You obviously, the thought of them went through your head. You probably didn't go through your 100 clients and go, oh, let me go just touch everybody. But you're reaching out to certain ones at certain times.
Correct.
And touching them and letting them know you're thinking about them. I think it's not like you don't have to have them over for dinner. There are some people, I forget who I was listening to. He was talking about he had Taco Tuesday every week. And he had to have someone different over the house every Tuesday. That was his family thing.
Oh, okay.
That's how he built relationships with people. He found, key people that, and obviously he was interested in, and he couldn't invite the same person twice. Had to have Taco Tuesday, and he was inviting someone different over the house. Yeah, that was one of his. And in a tight community like Nocatee, there's plenty of people that you could probably find 50 people to have over different every Tuesday night, whether you'd done business with them or not, but maybe future business with them or a vendor contact. Mentors. Looking back, maybe you have one now. Is there I think you talked a little bit about that broker, but did you ever have that maybe more senior agent, or how important it is to have a mentor? We're talking to new agents and making those phone calls, but to couple up with someone who's doing the business successfully and watch and evaluate what they're doing and, steal some of their best practices.
I believe, and that goes back to the learning process. So always educating yourself. So part of it was me going for additional education and designations and learning things that I felt like they were important to me and my business, and also the types of clients I work with, right? But then working with a mentor, and it might be a broker for somebody, it might be a team lead. The route that I went, I actually had explored a couple of options. One was Tom Ferry, and I felt like, I liked some of the stuff that I saw from them. But
I'm
then
going to start
when
listening more to
them,
Tom Ferry so I can talk about him more on the show, because I know a lot of people follow him.
Well,
I don't listen to him enough personally from a mortgage side. So
so when I talked to them, though, I felt like it kind of felt like it wasn't the right fit for me, right? And then I explored Ryan Serhant, and I signed up for the pro community. And it was amazing because it's very focused on you and what you're looking to achieve, your brand. They teach you. And that was cool to me, because for me, given my experience, it was more like, what is the stuff that I want to learn, stuff that I don't know, right? I don't need someone to coach me on drive and schedule, or setting appointments and connecting with people. Some people need that, and if you need that, look for a mentor that's going to do that for you, right? And I felt like maybe Tom Ferry was structured that way, right? Whereas the Sell It Like Serhant Pro program was all about building you and your brand and understanding how you're going to set yourself apart, and that was a cool experience. So it was like a 7-month program that I signed up for, and now I'm still part of that member community. But when I did that specific pro program, it was really cool because you're connected with people from all over the world that they're investing quite a bit in the mentorship, and you have a assigned coach that is like a brand strategist, and then you're also in this pro network that you're on these like
I gave out Ryan's books for a good bit of my first 100 podcast or so.
Okay.
I actually bought. Yeah, I haven't read the third one that just came out.
Yeah.
The branding one. I haven't read that one yet. I need to get that one. Yeah.
And so, anyway, so it was really cool because I was on monthly FaceTime calls with Ryan. Like, I was like, I'm on the phone with Ryan Serhan. This is so cool.
Was it one-on-one, or you had a little bit of a group?
No, it was group, but it was like he was talking directly to me. Like, you got to interact directly with him, and it was so cool. Like,
nice.
It was, and I'm interacting with him and other people, same position as me in terms of, and they also put you in brackets, like, so your volume bracket, so it feels relevant. So it was
interesting,
where you are and where you're trying to go. And so that's what was really cool, is that I was connecting with people, whether it was here in the US or another part of the world. And like, now we're all learning together and helping one another grow. And so that was a cool experience.
Yeah, well, no, you bring up something new that I've talked about the broker stuff, like finding the right broker that matches your business style or you feel is going to add. But you've added a new dimension to my conversations now, because, like you said, you came with this certain skill set. We talked about pre-show. Your story resonating with people, just coming from corporate America and that kind of thing, and. My wife is like that. She's a project manager mentality type thing. She's the detail person. I'm the visionary. She's definitely the integrator. And but when it comes to selecting, well, in this case, you basically select them as a coach, but knowing what you need and finding the coach that provides that the best.
Yeah.
That's the learning thing today. Yeah, that's awesome. We talked about working with other agents. Let's see where we're at. We talked about Engel and Volkers. Let's tip on social media and what is your mindset for you? I wouldn't say you're a social media guru. You don't have, I don't know how many Instagram followers you have, but what is because I think it's got to be, would you agree it has to be real estate agents have to make social media some part of their marketing?
Yes. And I think you have to do the one that makes the most sense to you. So, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't really, let's say, play on LinkedIn that often. It's more like it's a way for me to stay connected with my sphere from my past life. I think that's, because like I may not be connected with them in other channels. So it's kind of a different
well, I use LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is just that who is this person? I can go to LinkedIn and if they have a nice LinkedIn, I can say, oh, she worked at Estee Lauder, and I immediately saw at least for a little bit where you came from, and then obviously gives us a piece of something to talk about. Where it's not, although LinkedIn's wanting you to put more videos and stuff on there to be relevant, but it's not that place where you're putting your. I don't really think even putting your listings on LinkedIn is worth it.
No.
Yeah.
So for me, I think what I would give in terms of advice to other agents is pick the social media channel that is the one that you connect with the most and start there. And then once you master that, then you can start to build in, one or another one. Instagram is the one that I connect with the most with. Like I'm a very visual person. I told you I'm a visual learner. So that's why it's like, I love watching video. I love like seeing cool pictures. That's just how I engage. Right. Facebook, I'm also on Facebook, but it has more to do with like, that is a whole different channel of users that don't like to go on Instagram. So I find that like certain people engage there.
To me, it's more of a chat. It is more of a social thing, right? You can, I'm sure there's a Nocatee moms group or whatever.
So many groups,
yeah.
yes.
There's so many, where you're on there and you want to interact. Instagram, Although, I have messaged in Instagram, and obviously Facebook and Instagram is the same company. And if you post on Instagram, you can set it up to post over to Facebook or vice versa or whatever, or take your reels and say, yeah, put it on Instagram as well. So they do cross over. But I think there's a different subjects or different, the listings. I think if I was a real estate agent, I would definitely have my listings on Facebook. You can throw them on Instagram, but I think, the educational videos and so forth, or just, hey, here I'm up at the splash pad. This is awesome, isn't it? Kind of videos. I don't know. That would be that's my mindset between the two, but I think those two are the cornerstone right now.
Well, and I find that, whenever I'm marketing listings, they go on both because like I said, there are certain people that love Instagram. There's certain people that love Facebook. So I want to get the most eyes on those listings as possible. And that's what I tell my clients. But I've had different clients find me because of Facebook, and I've had other clients find me because of Instagram. And what I find is that Instagram, more people have reached out to me for me to work with them because they get who I am. They see a flow to my thought process and who I am and my lifestyle and how I portray myself, and like, like, I like you because I like your experience. I like how, I like what you say about how you work with clients and all of that. Like they feel like they can connect with me, and that's
because there's more. You think is being video having a lot to do with that, or do you if I just looked at went on your Instagram right now and just saw the, whatever you want to call it, the thumbnail or whatever, just that alone, but actually the video is helping them connect with you.
Video is helping them connect with me, but also, how you can scroll and you can see pictures and you see everything that I share in there. So you see, I'm talking about Florida lifestyle. I'm talking about, obviously, yes, that I'm in real estate, but Florida lifestyle and family is like the big core to who I am, right? So you scroll through and you see that, and people see like, oh, she's a mom, and she's,
her kids are roughly the same age as mine. That she must know about the schools.
Correct. Yeah. And you know what? Oh, they'd spend a lot of time out on their boat on the intercoastal. Like, we love doing that. We're like, so it is those types of things that people can relate to, which makes them decide that they want to work with me because they understand that I've been through it, and then that makes them want to work with me. Where like Facebook isn't set up that way. Like you'd have to like do a long scroll on my page to to get all of that. But it's just, I would say they're just two different platforms in how you present yourself and what you share.
Yeah, that's why I'm a big fan of YouTube. I mean, obviously anything comes from the show. I randomly post on Facebook. Every reel and the thing, because my Instagram is is the show stuff, but the it's cross-referenced, but everything goes to YouTube because I feel YouTube's a library.
It is.
They can go on there and they're going to put Pamela Hoffman on there, and my reels are going to pop up. The full length video is going to pop up on you and so forth. Where Instagram, if they put Pamela Hoffman, they're going to the top of your page. They don't see what's down there, unless I guess maybe if they search, hey, Nocatee Splash Park, which I mean, I imagine there's a million videos on that. For the top, I forgot the question I was going to ask next there. I'm going to throw this back at you because I'm going to think of this question I had it locked in my mind and then I lost it. We're hour and 17 minutes into this. Tell us something. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to express out there to being top of mind? I think that's another thing we talk about, the social media. How important in using the social media? Okay, this is the question. This is coming out of me now. I think a lot of people go, well, are you getting business off social media? Is it really measurable? Because personally, I feel people are using multiple platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. They're finding out about you. They may have saw a billboard about you. They're going online and going, "Who is this person?" And they're going into those platforms to find out more about you. Is there a real measure to say, "Hey, yeah, I put this post up and I got business from it"?
So I think it's important to ask clients when they reach out to you. So I've had sellers that have called me directly and say like, okay, so I'd like to set up an appointment with you. We're interested in selling our home. And I always ask, so how'd you find me?
Right.
Because I need to understand what I'm doing right and what I need to do more of. Right. And so I've had people point blank say like, we found you because of, your ads on Facebook, or we watched you. We were like searching Northeast Florida and looking for a particular area, and then videos of you came up, and so we watched, and then we started, and I see people follow me, so a name might, like I see, okay, so and so just followed you. I look at their page like, oh, I'm not even connected with them, and then like I get a call a couple days later, and it's because like they're watching passively to kind of see if you're the right fit for them. But I can attribute specific clients to social media and things that I've done that like they would have never found me any other way.
Which reminds me, make sure you friend me on Facebook so I can put the link over onto your page. Now, so the mystery question to everyone, because I think there's these people like, well, I tried social media for a week and no one called me. It doesn't happen like that.
It's a long game.
And then, the fact that you might actually be friends with someone they're friends with as well, and then they put in some sort of search mechanism. Is the algorithm giving them you because you have a mutual relationship with someone else? We don't know.
Yeah, that I'm not sure about.
Yeah. But entering into other people's circles. I mean, I can attest to it because the show, I've never met you before. We friend of it. There's so many people, so many agents I met first time coming on the show, but as soon as they friend me, and then of course I take this show and I post it on there, all of a sudden their friends are now seeing me, and I entered a whole new circle. There's people that you're friends with that I don't even know. But now when I post that over, they're going to go, well, who's this Real Estate Excellence podcast? What's going on here? And all of a sudden you enter into this circle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're interacting with your clients to friend them over and share the social media, you now start entering their circles. Because I assume the algorithm is, well, we've talked about it here. Like minds attract each other, in the different things that you've gone through. So, to keep expanding your circle, you don't know where that information is going and when it will come up. So,
correct.
Anything else you want to add?
Well, you were just talking about frequency and how you were using the example of how an agent can say, oh, well, I did it for about a week and nothing happened. I think it's important to stay consistent. I think it's also important to be yourself, because you could hire somebody to do your social media. I don't and that works for some people, and maybe at a certain I'm also a control freak. I probably should have told you that before. But that's something I won't dole out, because I need people to see me as me, and and there are people that will look me up and say like, okay, maybe she's a little too buttoned up, maybe she's a little too structured, she's not for me, and that's fine. But like people that find me, they see the real me, and they're like, I want to work with you because of XYZ. They understand kind of like who the person is. And I think that's what's important, is that in your social media is being able to just present yourself as you are, so that that people can connect with that.
Sean Carpenter, I don't know if you went to RE Bar Camp or not, but Sean Carpenter was one of the speakers. He's actually from Ohio, and he speaks nationally. And he spoke just about that. To be the same person online that you are offline. If you're this persona online and they run into you in the grocery store, you've got to be the same person. If you're, I'm sure around this country you have these newscasters that are seem so friendly on the 6 o'clock news, but then you run in the grocery store and they don't even want to see you, right? It's just that's the way they run. But in the relationship business that we're in, to be the same person online, offline, and vice versa. Yeah,
absolutely,
100%.
Something else that makes me successful, that I feel like makes me successful, is resilience. So
you have to be in this business, right?
Exactly. You can't take things personally, but you also, I think you also need to be able to bounce back from the challenges that come your way, and also be resourceful. When I was growing up, my dad taught me, and so I'm Colombian, and first generation born here, but my dad always taught me, like, you're going to get a flat tire in life. And so when you get a flat tire, what happens? You get out of the car, you change a tire, which I don't even know how to change a tire, by the way. And thankfully, I have run flats.
The way people drive today, I'm not getting out of the car.
Yeah. But it's a great metaphor for life, right? So, but he's like, you're going to get a flat tire. What do? You get out of the car, you change it, you get back in the car, you keep driving. And that is, that was something that was ingrained to me growing up. And so what does that mean for me today is that, like, I like to look for problems, and I tell my clients that. So I'm trying to look ahead. Like, what are the things that we could run into? What are the roadblocks? What are the potholes? And I'm going to tell you what they are, but I'm also not going to come at you hair on fire. I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, look, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what I foresee. You can do A, B, or C. Like, I try to present, like, options. Here's your paths you could take. And, here's what could happen. And I feel like being able to do that is what helps me and my clients get to a successful end. Because you're like, okay, things are going to come up throughout the process, whether you're selling or you're buying a home, but being able to handle those challenges as they come your way.
Right.
And not, like, it happens, but how are we, like, let's get back at it. Let's figure out, like, okay, how do we navigate through this so that we're getting to our end goal in mind? And I think that's important, is being resilient and being able to be resourceful and overcome challenges.
Well, that's the value you bring to the table. I mentioned the NAR lawsuit the other day, and to me, the bottom line of the NAR lawsuit is agents haven't, I don't know, I'm going to use the word lazy, just gotten complacent or whatever. What you just gave to me, we need to cut that out, and we need to put that on your YouTube of you expressing that, because it's very important, because that's value you bring to the table. People don't understand, and the transaction's stressful. When you got an agent like yourself that's already, hey, this is what could happen. This is how we're going to handle it. No big deal. So they can stay focused on that makes them happy, and that's signing in, well, I don't know if they're looking forward to moving their stuff in, but living in that home, right? That's what you want them picturing through the whole process. So when you do that, one, you're a professional. It shows your experience and have been through it a few times, and you're going to handle it. So when it happens, you're like, hey, yeah, remember I told you that was going to happen? But that's the value you bring to the table, and that's what every agent needs to do. But that's why you're successful. 100%.
Yes.
Good?
Yes.
All right.